Welcome to I Love My HBCU ? The podcast where we express our undeniable love for HBCUs, but where we are also not afraid to address a few tough questions. So, sit back, learn a little, love a lot, and rep your HBCU. It's another episode and, of course, another reason to love your HBCU. I'm excited. I have Chloe Foster in the studio with me today. And before you introduce yourself, Chloe, my excitement is Chloe is a recent grad. She's going to tell us her HBCU that she just graduated from not too long ago, and also give us an intro on whatever it is she feels like sharing about herself. But one of the reasons why I'm excited that Chloe's here, in the summer we do focus-driven topics, and today we're talking about commencement. And I can't wait to hear what Chloe's got to say about commencement since it's still fresh in her mind. Chloe, welcome.
Thank you for having me here. I really appreciate this.
Same here. Chloe, where did you graduate from? And I know there's going to be a beaming smile on your face as you talk about the institution you just
Yeah,
graduated from. Where did you
yeah,
graduate from? What was your major? Who were you at your institution?
yeah. So I just recently graduated from the first degree granting HBCU Lincoln University of Pennsylvania, where I studied finance and business management. While I was there, the past 4 years, I had the opportunity to be a student athlete on the softball team, as well as a student worker in the business department my senior year.
So
Yeah.
Chloe, I don't know you well, but I got to be introduced to you when you joined our organization for our Generation Next Thought Leaders Summit. And the little I have found out about you, you are one of the more multifaceted students out there. If anyone describes Chloe as just a student athlete, you'd be wrong. If anyone described Chloe as just this academic prowess on the dean's list, because she was on the dean's list almost every single semester she was in school, you'd be wrong. If you just like if you put you in a box with just one of the things that you do, you'd be wrong. You're a student speaker, you're so many things. A lot of students that I come across aren't able to navigate being that versatile. So I want you to share, you've graduated, but I want you to share how you were able to navigate being this multifaceted student while you were at Lincoln University, PA.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say, honestly, it's how you view yourself. Your perspective on yourself is important. And I did not walk in with the best perspective of myself. I walked in freshman year. Every freshman has those things. They're excited for school, but they're nervous. It's like, okay, do I recreate myself? Do I just stay the same person I was in high school? All the questions. I came in freshman year and I was like, okay, I'm a softball player and I'm a student. I didn't have the best grades in high school, so I had my priorities where I said, okay, I need to have good grades and I need to do well in softball. Those are my priorities. Sophomore year is when I really got into my faith. I'm a Christian and I that's when I surrendered my life to Jesus Christ. And I joined ministry that year and I added that on my plate. So me and my best friend, we actually started a women's Bible study. And I think that honestly was the start of my leadership roles. While I've had leadership roles in high schools and things of that such, I think that was the thing that really pulled me out because I remember me and her were asking, hey, who's going to start this Bible study? And we're looking around for everyone else to start it. And our friends came up and they were like, you guys can do it. So I think having a circle of people around you to also see beyond your potential helps because in those moments of doubt, they are going to drive you even when you don't feel like walking.
Yeah.
So I think that having that sophomore year really built a strong foundation to encourage me into my junior year to now say, okay, what do I want to do with these things I've been studying? I should get an internship. I should do X, Y, and Z. I should apply to conferences, which is crazy as a student athlete because it's student athletes don't have the opportunity to go to conferences. So I was getting into my major a lot more so that by the time my senior year came, I applied to be a student worker in the business department where I was able to work side by side with my professors, which I enjoyed. I went to 4 or 5 conferences. The first conference being Leadership Institute with Thurgood Marshall College Fund, which was crazy because I was a student speaker at that conference and I hate public speaking. So I don't know why I'm putting myself in front of 500 people, employers, students from all over, and everyone else who was also student speaker, they already had experience. And being in those rooms can be intimidating, but also I'm in the room. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that's the biggest part is knowing that if you've made it in the room, there's something that qualifies you to be in that room. So when we are our biggest setback. When we see
Mm,
that the sky's the
mm.
limit, we're gonna run with it. So senior year, I ran with it. I was applying to everything. I remember there was a point I was applying to all these jobs. I had interviews every week. Employers loved me. And it was really great just getting exposure and being out there, especially because I felt behind. Because you
Yeah.
see a lot of these student leaders, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people can resonate to this, especially at a school like Lincoln, where it's the same 5 people from each class applying to the same things.
To the same things.
So trying to fit in with those student leaders can be intimidating when it's like they have the experience, I don't. But the thing is, if I keep saying I don't have the experience, I'll never get it. If I keep being the one to say I'm not supposed to be there, I'll never be there. So it's just that step of faith and walking out in confidence, knowing if God sent me to this room, then there's a reason why I'm here.
I love, oh gosh. There are so many gems from what you said. One of the biggest ones that I want to hone in on is we can be our biggest setbacks. Which, as you said it, my brain immediately went to mindset. And
Yeah.
what we tell ourselves could be the biggest reason why we don't try out these different things that allows us to be a multifaceted student like you, or why we do go forward and try everything, because what's the worst that could happen? The worst that could happen is that you don't get it, but then you try something else. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. Because I just laid it on you really thick at the beginning to start giving advice.
Yeah.
Chloe, I love giving the rapid fire segment. Actually, a lot of people have told us it's one of their favorite parts of the podcast. So let's get to yours. Yours is going to be the first that is going to be focused on the subject as opposed to just you. Are you ready? 67 seconds on the clock. Give me a 1 or 2 word answer to each one of these questions. Ready?
Okay, let's go.
All right. Describe yourself in 3 words.
Creative, caring, funny.
Creative, caring, funny. If your
Yeah.
time in Lincoln was a song, what song would it be?
When I'll see you again. I think that's what it's called. I'm pretty sure
I,
that's what it's
I,
called.
I, I
Yeah.
think I know the song. I think I know the song. I
Yeah.
think I know the song. All right, now we're going to the focus of this podcast episode. Celebrity or educator as a commencement speaker?
Educator.
Educator, alum or outsider?
Plum.
Mm. Alum. Okay, okay, okay. 5 minute speech or 39-minute
5.
speech?
5.
Five. She was shaking her head. Five. A quick five. Standing ovation, like somebody that's very powerful in their delivery, or unforgettable message. They leave you with something you will always remember.
Unforgettable.
Unforgettable message. Funny or deeply challenging?
Deeply challenging.
Deeply challenging. Okay. Wow, we got a lot in. We typically don't get a lot in for the rapid fire. So kudos to you. Bubby, I always end with this. So I'm going to end with this. If you could shout out one person, it could be a student, it could be a faculty member, it could be a teammate, anybody. It could be one of your just staff who have been so helpful at Lincoln University of PA. Who would you be shouting out?
Would say one of my finance professors, Dr. Phillips. She helped more students than you can even imagine. I actually just reached out to her yesterday. She's amazing. She's like almost like a mom to a lot of people. Just because being away from school, you kind of need that person to just ride by you and help you with your classes, just have that conversation, guide you through life. And the fact that I can say that I even messaged her yesterday and I'm graduated, I think that speaks volumes.
Absolutely.
Um, when an incident happened on campus, she was one of the first people to reach out to all of us, along with a bunch of our other professors, because I think that
Of
we do have
course.
a very good, speaking for the business department, we have a very good department, very caring, very family like. But I would definitely say that she has been someone who has carried a lot of students. I've seen a lot of stuff behind the scenes that students don't even know they should say thank you for.
Oh, that's
So,
nice. So
yeah.
to Dr. Phillips and all the Dr. Phillipses at every and any university, thank you for all the things that you do that nobody gets to see. So you are at the end of your journey. You've put the 4 years behind you, but I want you to take us back to high school Chloe, who was, graduating shortly and picking her university. Give me your college selection journey. Sure, you're from PA, but you could have gone anywhere. Why and how did you land at Lincoln University of Pennsylvania?
So I had a different process than the average student because of the recruiting process through softball. So essentially, I think that made a huge difference in my selection because I wasn't just choosing a school, I was also choosing a softball program along with what I wanted to study. So you're looking at team dynamics, you're looking at coaches, you're looking at a lot of other stuff, and it's
Yeah,
also performance based. I'm seeing who wants me. So I think the process really started sophomore year, which was a hard thing because that was when COVID hit.
yeah,
And I think during that year, I honestly wanted to quit softball. And I think that was a hard time for everyone. But then with everything going on in the world at that time, I realized I needed a HBCU. It's not that I wanted it, it's
mm,
that I needed it
mm,
because I've only ever grown up in PWIs. So I was like, there's something that I want to know, and I know I'll only get it from an HBCU. So I took it upon myself to go find that. So I remember I was looking up HBCUs, I reached out to a bunch of different HBCUs. Also, I didn't grow up knowing about HBCUs either. So that was a very foreign concept to me. So now being an HBCU alum, I'm ride or die HBCU.
mm.
But yeah, I remember I reached out and I was like, dang, like every HBCU's in the South. I don't want to be too far from home, but I also want the best opportunity for me. And it was hard because when recruiting, people normally recruit within the states around them. So unless it's Division 1, then it gets deeper into that. But or you're from California, because everyone recruits from California. But
Okay, I did not
yeah,
know that.
yeah, for softball specifically. But I would say that, yeah, so getting in touch with some of those southern schools was a little hard, and I didn't have the exposure I needed to get in touch with those schools. So I was looking at schools like Morgan, Bowie, Lincoln, um, Eastern Shore, just the northern schools. And when I looked at everything, Lincoln kept reaching out to me, and I was like, no, I'm not going to this school. Like the program, it was barely anything at that time. Um, there wasn't any structure to it, honestly. And I was like, why would I come to a school where there's no program? I'm playing on some good softball teams right now, and why would I kind of take a step back?
Mm,
But then they
mm.
kept reaching out to me, and I'm like, okay, they're probably reaching out to me because they want to build something, but I didn't see the bigger picture. So finally, I get to the end of my junior year, and I go on my visit to Lincoln, And I told my mom, I was like, "No, I'm not going to this school." And I get to the visit and I'm like, "Okay, it's not that bad." And then I meet the girls and I'm like, "Okay, they're kind of cool." And then I'm walking around campus and I'm like, "Okay, this kind of feels like home." And then the faculty and staff is hugging me like they already know me. And I'm like, "Okay, I think my family's here." And just
Aw.
all the things. And I'm like, I told my mom, I'm like, "Okay, but I'm still not going." And then later on, I was like, "Okay." And then I see how just everything just seemed to work out, and I remember I was driving up to my visit, and I was listening to a sermon, actually,
Mm, mm.
and the one thing that it was saying is maybe the gaps that you see is because those are the places you're supposed to lead. So then when I went on that visit and I saw the gaps, I realized that I carried the thing to fill it. So and of course, that doesn't mean that I have to carry the weight of the team on my shoulders, that's why we have a team. I think that's the beautiful thing about team sports is that you learn those things that it's not just about you, and it shouldn't be about you. Um, so from that point on, I was like, I might as well just give Link a try, and I did, and I think that was one of the best bets I took. I applied to a few other schools, but I really just went forth with Lincoln, and I think that was just one of the best decisions I could have made.
I love it. You're the second person that quite literally, and if I'm not mistaken, your episodes are going to deploy right after each other. So we had a conversation with a young lady who is currently a student at an HBCU and is
Mhm.
currently on the softball team. And when we asked the question about how she selected her institution, it was my first time. Now it's my second time hearing that the process is different for you guys because of the recruitment portals that you have to go through, which now makes me wonder what's driving the decision, right? Is it the
Yeah,
academics driving the decision? Is it the sports driving the decision? So I appreciate your responses, yours and hers, maybe a little bit more differently than I would have before, because then I get to hear a full perspective of, but when I got there, I realized it was bigger than X and Y. It was like I smiled when you said, "I think I found my family here." And then you
yeah,
said, "Well, but I'm still not coming." Like that was nice to hear the ebbs and flows of the decision that you made in
yeah.
going to Lincoln. So at some point in time, I hope we have time to come back to. There's a statement you made that I wrote down here, and I want to come back to it, I hope, before we finish our recording. And it's when you gave your life to Jesus. I'm
Mhm.
curious to hear your story, if you don't mind sharing it, because you delineate a freshman going into sophomore year, which something tells me either something was missing or something was being sought after or something happened, right? And you're not the first person that I've heard come to college and say that that's when they found whatever their spiritual awakening was. So if you're open to it, I'd love to come back to that
Yeah,
later and ask you
yeah,
about
for
it.
sure.
But I want to talk about commencement. Do you remember who your
Okay.
commencement speaker was?
I'm blanking on his name, but I remember the message very, very well,
Okay.
and I just remember him encouraging us to go deeper. He was actually a mentor of 2 of the students there, and I think that's
Okay.
why I answered the rapid questions the way I did, um, because if I'm correct, and I probably should have looked back at that too, but if I'm correct, he was either just an old teacher of theirs or just a community leader of theirs. But I felt like he was just very personal. He just spoke to us. He didn't give some 30-hour speech about the great things that life is going to have and everything. And the speech was kind of long, but it didn't feel that way. And I
I
think
like
that's the
that.
best part. it was like everyone was on the edge of their seats engaged. He was charismatic at some points, but for the most part, he was just informative and speaking to our
Yeah.
hearts. So I think that I really just appreciated that.
So our Gen Nexters, that's what we call our interns who work with I Love My HBCU question mark. They when they when they brought this subject, when they said, "Hey, Dr. T, we've got to talk about commencement and most especially how the speakers are selected," it came from several different energies, right?
Yeah.
And listening to the way you just responded, your energy fits why they wanted us to have this conversation. And there was a student I remember saying very, very vividly, sorry, I remember her saying very, very passionately that Dr. T, every single time before commencement occurs and they announce the speaker, it's as if they're announcing some big deal for us. And then we see who it is and we're like, this isn't for us. Who is this?
Yeah.
And this is when it's even like a name that the students should recognize and so on and so forth. Do you feel that universities and let me quickly put this disclaimer out there. I happen to be aware that securing commencement speakers is actually a tough gig. It's not the easiest thing to do. I am 100% aware and sure that universities want particular types of speakers that may actually resonate better with students, but maybe because of the cost, maybe because of alignment, several different reasons, and sometimes maybe just because of scheduling, it doesn't always occur as they would want it to. And so sometimes they end up with who they have, who they get, and so on and so forth. So I'm aware of that. So I want to put that disclaimer out there that both Chloe and I are aware that it's not the easiest thing to do when universities go after speakers. Let's put it aside for 2 seconds. Chloe, do you feel that currently the way the selection of commencement speakers occurs, do you think it often has the student in mind, or is it driven really just by the university?
I honestly think it depends on the university, first of all, but I do believe that there are a lot of university inputs over student inputs. I like, for example, how I mentioned Lincoln's commencement this year, and also Lincoln has commencement and graduation on the same day. I know that some
Okay.
schools have commencement separate from graduation, but we only have one graduation because of how small we are.
Okay.
So, also
Okay.
taking into account thinking about how long you're going to be sitting there, a lot of students don't want to listen to a long-winded, like they're just waiting for their diploma that day. So, I would say that I remember Lincoln originally had someone else. I'm not completely sure who it was, but that fell through, and then we ended up with this second person who was actually much more enjoyable. And it's funny to think like that might not have been someone's first choice for the grand commencement idea, but that's actually who we needed. And I think a lot of the students would have said who probably would have been their first choice of who they wanted. So, honestly, it doesn't have to be some big name. I understand people might want Beyoncé or something, that would be great. But honestly, it's like, what we want someone, at least speaking for me, I want someone who's going to tell me like, "Hey, you're going to the next step in life, but hold on to these memories you had. Like, it's okay if you grieve this school. It's okay if you thought you hated it and you're like, "Wait, I actually wanna come back." It's okay." Like, having a conversation, not just someone speaking at you just because they have a big name and the things of that such.
So it's safe to say that you would pick message over name recognition, and it's safe to say that based on the way you answered earlier on, you don't even remember the person's name, but the person left you with a message that you
Yeah.
walked away with, and so it resonating might
Yeah.
feel better. I wonder then what your take is. I don't know if you heard about Howard University's commencement ceremonies this past spring, commencement, and the student, it's not the first time this would happen, it just so happened that it happened at Howard. The students booed the commencement speaker, because the commencement speaker was the mayor of the outgoing mayor
Mhm.
of Washington D.C., and clearly the students were not in alignment with whatever that mayor stood for.
Yeah, I think I remember hearing about that, actually.
What's your take, even if you don't know the details of it, what's your take on that behavior? What's your, you let's say, let's leave it, let's leave Howard off the list. Let's say
Yeah.
Lincoln University had invited somebody that your group of students, your group of graduates were not necessarily excited about, and all of you had chosen, in some cases, to turn your back on the speaker, and in other cases boo the speaker. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so, the first thing that came to my mind was respect, but that goes for both ends, where I think that we should respect the people who are speaking, but also at the same time, I think, especially if it is political and being at a HBCU, um, there are some things that I think whoever the commencement committee is should look into, and that goes back to who's the target audience. Who are you trying to speak to? Is it navigating towards the university? Is it one person who just invited their friend that they just want to hear speak? Or is, because sometimes that happens, or is it actually for the students? And I think that's the bigger picture, um because it's like this is our last memory,
Mm, mm, mm.
and for us to have someone just because you wanted your friend there, just because you thought they would give a great speech and not cater towards us, I think that's also not respecting the students. So I think it's a respect thing on both sides, whereas as students, and honestly, like grown adults at this point, graduating school, um, don't necessarily need to boo the speaker for certain reasons, but I on the other end too, respecting the students in that sense of who they're gonna have at as speaking.
So as you were speaking, it reminded me of, and the word you used was respect, and I appreciate that. And I personally appreciate that you approached respect on both ends. It's impossible for my mind not to quickly recap, as you were speaking, the situation with South Carolina. I don't know if you heard, South Carolina State University, they had initially had it was initially announced that the lieutenant governor, she's a Republican, the lieutenant governor, I believe it's Pamela Yvette. If I'm wrong, I stand corrected. And the students protested, like they protested widely not having her, and it was eventually switched later on. And for anyone that wants to go do the research, there was a lot of commentary on both sides post the cancellation of the lieutenant governor, and her words, I felt, were a little tone deaf if one looks at the fact that commencement is supposed to be about the students, and the commencement speech is supposed to be about the students. And if the students say, once hearing that, well, we don't want you, then the question becomes, should you force that upon the students, number one?
Yeah,
And number two, um, and I don't want to quote her because I can't remember exactly what she said,
yeah, for
but it was
sure.
along the lines of the students, the students being given too much power with regards to making a decision like that. But what I want to get to now is not even the South Carolina State University a debacle, because they changed the speaker, they had their commencement, and all was good. It's to the process. It's to the process. Are you aware of what the process of selection of the commencement speakers are at Lincoln University, PA? Yes or no?
I am not.
Okay. So if you could devise what the process is, What do you think it should look like? Do you think there should be student voice? Do you think SGA should have SGA, Student Government Association? For those who don't know, it's supposed to be representative of the student voice, the student body at most institutions. Do you think there should be an involvement that is more democratic with regards to selecting the commencement speaker? What would your process look like if you could design it? You're president for a day, Chloe Foster. What would the process be like that you would institute?
So I honestly think, and of course it's hard because we have to do think of practicalities.
Of course.
Um, but I think it should be even split of, let's have a pool of people who are considering and present them to the students. And if the students have any inputs, and I would say not all the students, but maybe SGA or student, I know HBCU have rural court, so maybe they could be, but some of the student leaders, some of the voices on campus, because they could also get other students' opinions, but also for the order of things and practicalities, um, presenting those names to those students. And if they have any suggestions, bringing those in. I also think the suggestions, like someone can suggest Beyonce, but it's like, okay, who's going to get in contact with her? So I think sometimes that's where it can get hard with getting the entire student body's um, input. So I would say essentially just, starting with a commencement board, presenting to the students, students handpick a few, and then from that point on the commencement board, and even having a student intern on the commencement board, possibly. I think some schools do that. I'm not sure if all schools do that. Having them also lead way of what that looks like, help support, and at the end of the day, not everyone's going to be satisfied. That's understandable, but being
Of
able to do the
course.
best to accommodate the desires of everyone, because this is a huge moment. This is like, for example, graduation was my last moment at Lincoln University that I can remember. So, for imagine if I had a terrible graduation, terrible commencement, and it's like, well, I don't want to be here, then that kind of just leaves a bad taste in my mouth from my last experience.
I love, before I tell you what I love, I want to make sure I'm accurate in saying that you suggest that a short list should be given to students and then have the students potentially vote on that short list, and not necessarily just have students come up with who they think the commencement speaker would be, because it sounds as if you've used Beyonce's name twice now. It sounds as if people, and you're not wrong. A lot of students that I've spoken to, just walking by, oh my gosh, it'll be nice if we had Beyonce as our graduation.
Yeah.
Okay, no comments. And for the reasons that you gave, logistically, how would that happen, right? But yes, it sounds as if you would propose shortlisting and then getting student input. Is that accurate?
Yes, and then yeah, essentially.
I would love to see that occur at different HBCUs, at different universities, period, but definitely at different HBCUs. And if there's an HBCU out there that already does so, contact us, please. I would love to see what that looks like, because I think it's something that should be copied around and not just the manner in which I see it occurring at most institutions. And that is, there is a commencement committee, but rarely does it involve an active student voice, at least based on the little and the a lot that I know, that rarely does it involve student voice. Do you think, Chloe, listen, Chloe, I have 3 degrees. I do not remember who my first commencement speaker was. I do not. I don't even remember the message. So it's not just about not remembering the commencement speaker. You're good. You remember the message, but you just graduated. Let me give you 5
Yeah,
more years. You may not remember the message.
yeah.
I remember who the second commencement speaker was because it was Jesse Jackson. That's the
Okay.
reason why I remember it. It's hard for me to forget. And he gave his, I don't remember the message, just being honest. I do not remember the message, but I absolutely remember the charge that he gave us, right? And then my third commencement speaker was, and I did not attend that particular commencement for my master's. I just, watched it later on. But for the doctorate, it was Judge Sotomayor. I do remember her. I also don't remember the message. And I'm noticing a pattern. Bigger name, I don't remember the message. And I wonder if there's a thing there. Do you think the commencement process that we use should change? Do you think HBCUs, for example, should devise a different pattern for graduation and not use the traditional commencement graduation process that we've inherited from the way other institutions have gone about doing their graduations?
I that's a very good question actually, because I would love to say yes, because no one wants to sit through a long commencement, especially with the normal ways that things been going, having all these speakers, the long main speaker. But again, back to practicality, it's like, hey, well, what does that look like to have?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the first thing that came to my mind was get invited to the cookout, have a big HBCU, like
Oh.
family fest. You get to celebrate with your family everything you've done the day before graduation. I think that would just go down for HBCU culture. Let's get everyone out here, just fun, good vibes. Everyone, just living life. I think that would be great. You could have honestly like a speaker here and there, some maybe like live music, just good vibes, honestly. That's what I think of when I can just think of what would a culmination to HBCU culture look like, to HBCU life look like.
When an administrator hears what you just said, I hope they also hear this because I a lot of administrators that I've heard will argue keeping traditional tenets, upholding traditional tenets.
Yeah.
But I hope they also hear this because what I hear when you said what you just said is preserving the culture of community that
Yeah.
HBCUs give. When on this podcast, almost everyone talks about how, and it doesn't matter the color of their skin. Almost
Mhm.
everyone talks about how they feel a sense of community. They feel a sense of family at their HBCU. I hear that a lot. And that is unique to HBCUs. I will argue that that is very, very unique to HBCUs. So there's a culture of community that exists. And you just said accurately that graduation will probably be one of the last times you will have a uniquely Lincoln University PA experience. And so I hope that when an administrator hears what you just said about what you think your suggestion for commencement should be, that they're hearing somebody say, now, why can't that be a beautiful community send off? Why can't that
Yeah.
be us ending it the way we've always known our identity to be? So I hope they hear that as well, and not just, oh, she just wants a cookout and a party. I hope they hear that
Yeah.
what's behind that is what we have known our identity to be at HBCUs. I must ask you this. If if you could have picked your dream commencement speaker, who would it have been and why? It can't be Beyonce. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But if you could have picked your dream commencement speaker, who would it have been and why?
That's such an interesting question because I feel like commencement is the one thing that people dread. So you never think about
Wow.
that. So
Wow.
just because of the
Wow.
long-winded speeches, um,
Wow.
hmm, I don't
Wow.
know. I'm trying to think of like who would I really want to have speak. Because honestly, for me and the type of person I am, I would just say one of like my inspirational professors
I love
because
that.
I think that really sums up like I'm here at school and I'm done and I get to just hear like a charge from someone who's
Mm,
poured into my
mm,
life the past 4 years. And that's definitely a hard way to go because every department has a different person. Um, but that's honestly the only thing I could think of because I mean it's nice to have a great title to see you know, you had so and so here, you had Michelle Obama come and speak. That's great and amazing. But to actually like for me, I love like just having that intentionality to have that personal um connection and to have someone who is like, "Hey, like I've seen you guys grow from 18-year-olds coming to this place and now you guys are walking out 22, 23 years old. And I see that some of you guys may be scared, but I know you're ready to take on the world.
mm,
And this is
mm.
why." And I think hearing that from someone who actually knows you versus someone is like I I don't even know what else they might talk about at commencement because some of their other speeches are like an hour long and they're just talking. It's like so, yeah, like, I think having that, like, that goes back to what I said before, like an educator, short and concise,
Absolutely.
but, like, heartfelt. It doesn't have to have all the dramatics to it, just, "Hey, like, you're speaking to my heart."
I appreciate that. I do. Let's wrap up the commencements part of this.
Yeah,
End this phrase for me. Commencement belongs to.
the students.
So I said if we have a couple of minutes, which we do, and I appreciate that
Yeah.
we have just a couple of minutes. Um, if you're comfortable, which you said you were,
Yeah,
you said earlier on that you gave your life to Jesus sophomore year of college.
yeah.
What does that mean when you say I gave my life to Jesus? First of all, what does that mean? And was there something that triggered that for you that led down that road?
Yeah, so what that means essentially is I've said, "You know what? This life that I'm living, I realize that there is something greater than me, and I realize that that is Jesus Christ. And I want to surrender and just give this over to Him and say, Lord, you can have my life. Use me as you please. And I want to live for you. I don't want to just live for myself or what I think is the best, but I want to be guided by you and what your word says. And the word is the Bible. So just following the Bible and just doing my best. We're not called to be perfect, but in the Bible, it even says that He's the author and perfecter of our faith. So it's like if we were to be perfect, that would say like, "Oh, Jesus, I don't need you because I'm already perfect." But I think it's more comfort saying that, I'm actually not perfect, which is why I need the perfecter. So kind of going back into my story with that, like I always grew up in church. Um, and I know a lot of people around me have, but church can kind of just become like religious activity and not relational being with Jesus. And I think when I got to high school, I was still going to youth group and doing all things. And by the time I got to college, like I was reading my Bible a little bit, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna have my HBCU experience. I'm gonna have my college life. I think that's everyone's first thing when they walk into school. They're like, hey, like time to go get freedom. And we find freedom, or we find what we think is freedom in everything that we see, whether it was just various things I was getting into, just going out all the time, and I think that really caught up with me, and I realized like one, I realized I wasn't okay. I realized that my mental health was suffering, that I was trying to fill a void that only God could fill with anything else that I saw. So whether that was just like going out to parties, whether that was like guys or whatever that may be, I always continued to try to fill that void. And that was me like taking upon my life. And I was like, okay, my life is my own. Like I can do this. And every single time I tried to muster up the strength and get through, I would break down.
Mm.
And I think by time I got to my freshman year, the end of my second semester of my freshman year, I was going to season. I was like, "Hey, you know what? I'm just gonna relax." I was going through a lot of mentally. There was a point where I was on the field and I would have like anxiety attacks that like couldn't even practice. Um, and I was just dealing with a lot, and I took that time just to kind of set myself and say, okay, you know what? I knew God. I grew up in church. So I was like, hey God, I'm gonna start reading my Bible. I'm gonna start going on this self-care journey, like, trying to get my mind right, trying to get my body right, working out. But I was kind of like one foot in, one foot out. It wasn't until sophomore year when one of my friends said something to me that really changed my perspective. And he was like, so you're a Christian, right? And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "So I don't need you to disrespect my God because I also serve Jesus Christ. So I need you to start living like one or stop calling yourself one." And I was like, "Okay." And that is like kind of like a whoa moment. But when I heard that, I was like, you know what? There's a decision I need to make. Do I actually want to live for the Jesus I've been proclaiming? Or do I just want to say I'm something and do the complete opposite? Because it's kind of like imagine if I called myself a student athlete but never went to practice. And it's like, okay, like, so yeah, that at that moment I was like, you know what? You're right. And it's not like everything changed that day. I still had my moments, I still had my struggles, I still had the moment, it's not like I read my Bible every single day from that point on and all the things, but there was a willingness and there was a surrender. And I was like, okay, God, I realize I can't do this life by myself. Um, and then that's when we started the Bible study next semester. And I'm like, wait, who am I to lead this Bible study? I don't know anything. And my friend was like, no, you know a lot more than you do, and you're surrendered. And he was like, I'd rather have someone who's surrendered than someone who knows everything about the Bible but doesn't know Jesus. Because you can have the knowledge without revelation. And I think that's a lot of things that I was missing. I knew everything. I could recite scripture back and forth. I grew up in church, I grew up in Sunday school, but I didn't know Jesus for myself. So then walking through college and realizing who Jesus was and how like freedom is truly found in him, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is different." And ever since then, life just started going and going and going. And like you're saying, I'm multifaceted, but that's simply because my foundation's on him. So from that point, I remember post sophomore year, I was like, okay, I'm on fire for this thing. I was like, wait, I want to tell more people about this thing. I ended up going to California, and I got trained and just learned more about who Jesus is and how to talk about him. And then I ended up going to Zambia, Africa later that year. And I was able to go and talk to the communities there and speak with them, help with the ministries there. And it's something about going to different cultures and just fully immersing yourself in that culture, seeing how they live, but also getting to share your life with them. And I found so much beauty in that. And then when I came back, I was like, oh my gosh, like there's a bunch of people all over the world who serve the same Jesus, but it looks different. And I love that. Like it doesn't have to be the things that we see on social media. It looks different. Everyone has their own culture. It's beautiful. Um and it even talks about that in the Bible. It talks about every nation, every tribe. Like I think that's one of the most beautiful things just to see the diversity in what we call like the kingdom of God. And yeah, so moving on from there, this kind of goes into just a little bit me navigating throughout college. It wasn't always perfect. Sometimes I fell out, sometimes, but I feel like when I realized that God's grace is sufficient for me, his mercies are new every morning, saying that like just because I messed up, quote unquote, or whatever, it doesn't mean that I'm exempt from Jesus. It means that there's actually a reason for his sacrifice that he did when he died on the cross for me, and saying, hey, like I want you to come back to me. And I think that was the one of the most comforting things that got me through college, because I would not be where I am if I kept the same mindset and the same level of faith I had freshman year.
I I write a lot when people are talking on the podcast, things that I don't want
You're
to
good,
forget.
yeah.
And one of the things that I wrote down as you were talking is where and how we find our center. That's what I wrote there. And the reason why I wrote that, as I listened to you, I heard somebody who something within you said something doesn't feel right. Something within you said, I need something else. And for you, the answer was going on a deeper spiritual journey and
Yeah,
finding Jesus. I hope one day to be able to gather a good number of HBCU current students and alum and tackle that particular thing that I just wrote, where and how we find our center. um Religion is such a big thing on HBCU campuses, and it's why I said, do you mind talking about yours? And the religion isn't always Christianity, it is various types. And I'm just curious, as long as people don't find that too taboo, because it could become a little testy, but as
yeah,
long as people don't find that too taboo, I'm curious, not necessarily to focus on the religion itself, but the thing that happens with each student sometimes, that makes them ask, beg, seek for something more, that whatever it is that they're going through at the time, they begin to realize this can't be it. This isn't enough. So Chloe, listen, we talked about a lot. I know a lot within
yeah.
the commencement space because that was the focus. But is there something that you're like, oh, I'd love to leave this with your audience before we say goodbye? If you've got something, what would that be?
Yeah, so I have just two little things. So the first one, following that conversation that I just said, just I had to remember that Jesus loved me as much as he also loves everyone else out here. So just sharing that. But also, with that, I'm also going instead of going to a master's program, a job offer, I've decided to take some time and I'm going back to California this time for a few months, essentially as a missionary. Um, and yeah, I'm fundraising my living expenses, which is just a walk of faith because that's huge.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I'm going out there and then I'm just going to be getting trained, essentially just on how to be a better leader when it comes to this thing of Jesus Christ and Christianity. And that goes beyond being a pastor in a church or anything, but simply like, what does it look like to lead in whatever space I'm in? And then going out on outreach. I know that my hope is to travel. The group I'm working with, they travel to different HBCU campuses actually, and they just host nights, worship nights. So if anyone would love to support this journey that I'm on, I would greatly appreciate that. But I'm super excited to see how much I grow, how much I discover about myself, because even post grad, been it's been a journey, but
Yes.
I know God is faithful, so I'm trusting Him with my faith and walking in faith
how
in
how
this.
how can we, how can they, how can
Yeah.
anyone who hears this, how can they support? Where can they go to?
Yeah, so on my Instagram, and I'm not sure if you guys will tag me on this. So yeah, on my
We
Instagram,
will.
I did post about it.
Okay.
Perfect. So I posted about it, and there's a link in my bio which has a direct deposit link, which most people see as most reliable. But I also have like Cash App, Venmo, and Zelle. If anyone wants to DM me and reach out, I'd be more than happy to even have a conversation about what this is, because I understand what
Absolutely.
people want to know, where their money's going to in what they're doing. There is practicality, and I'm so willing to hop on a call. We can do voice memos. I love a good voice memo. So whatever it needs to be, I would just love to talk about it. But this is something that's very passionate about me, and I just want to see other people, especially HBCU students, experience the same freedom, peace, and clarity that I've experienced. And I
I
feel
love
like
that.
once we retain something, it's our only job to give back. And I love that I have the training period first so that I'm not doing harm, but I'm also, just saying, okay, how can I share this freedom that I've experienced without, doing too much and intruding, and all the things that can come up with certain things like this.
I appreciate it. I really, really do. And we will be tagging you.
Yes.
So
Thank
I'm
you.
hoping that enough of our audience. When do you leave for when do you leave for California for this next journey?
Yeah, so as of right now, I'm leaving in October. So I have a
Beautiful.
little
We
bit of
have time.
time. I'm
We have time.
fundraising until then. Yeah,
We have
but I
time. I
have some
love that.
deadlines coming up. Yeah,
We have time.
I'm
We have
excited.
time. We have time and we have faith. So we're going to be good.
Yes.
Chloe, end this episode for us in one word or short phrase. Why do you, Chloe Foster, love HBCUs?
HBCUs are where home is found.
HBCUs are where home is found. You heard it from Chloe Foster. It is impossible for you to have tuned into this episode and not go ahead and like it because of Chloe Foster. I think she has been very pragmatic, practical, kind in her conversation. How could you not like it? So, like this episode because of Chloe. I
Yes.
also hope that I have done my due diligence in encouraging you to subscribe to I Love My HBCU question mark wherever you get your podcasts. Chloe, thank you so much. Yours in HBCU love. See you next episode. Thanks again,
Thank
Chloe.
you.
You've been listening to I Love My HBCU question mark. Let's keep the conversation going as we share our stories and encourage more practical support of HBCUs, whilst of course holding each other accountable. Don't forget to follow and subscribe for the latest episodes. Until next time, love and lift your HBCU.